Hello, beautiful souls, and thank you for joining me for another reading here on the House of Iyami Ajay channel. My name is Bookie, and I am so grateful to have you joining me for this pick a card. We will be clarifying messages from your guides pertaining to spiritual self-care. What do your guides want you to tend to? These are the messages that we will be deepening into. Now we have 3 cards here for you to choose from. I would encourage you to take a deep breath, fill up your lungs, and slowly let it out through your mouth. Just grounding into this present moment. Allowing any thoughts, concerns, any distractions to fade into the background as you take another deep belly breath, filling up your lungs, and again exhaling through your mouth. Now, before you open your eyes, I would like you to tap into who you consider to be your spirit guides. Now, this could be a deceased loved one. It could be an ancestor. It could be an element of nature. A pet. An archetype. A deity from a spiritual pantheon that you align with. And as you focus on them, ask them for their support in allowing you to pick the right card for you, the right message to direct you. So you're asking for their energy to sort of assist you in selecting the right card. And as you slowly open your eyes, I would like you to focus on what comes up for you. Where is your eye drawn to? What grabs your attention? If it's a color, a word, a number, a detail of any kind, focus on that. Don't question it. Don't hesitate. Go in that direction. Now, if you realize 10 minutes in, they're going to be timestamps in the description of this reading. If you realize that you are not aligning with any of the messages, you're free to pick another message and go with another reading. Don't try to make anything fit your story, your situation or circumstance. Take what resonates and just allow the rest to, dissipate, right? But if a reading doesn't resonate more than it does resonate, then it possibly might not be for you. If you're only finding that 1 or 2 little things are fitting, it probably isn't your message. And although there's nothing wrong with digesting messages that aren't for us, we are just sort of clogging up space, and we're, in terms of this healing work, in terms of spiritual self-care, deepening into our spiritual knowing and strengthening our spiritual muscles, a huge aspect of that is actually the work of attuning our own intuition so that we are more able to heed the messages, to understand the signs, the symbols when they happen. So I would actually say you are better off trying to find a message that aligns than listening to one that doesn't. Although you can also argue that you are developing your spiritual literacy and knowledge and wisdom, right? It just depends on your own discernment, depends on where you are at. And I'll leave that for you to decide. So I should have done this prior. We have 3 cards: Comfrey, Completion, Dragon's Blood, and Pau de Arco, Metamorphosis. The idea is that you don't spend too long deliberating, on which message, and you go with your intuition. A minute or two, but no longer than that, really. And at this point, I'm hoping that you have selected your card. We'll be starting with number 1, which is Comfrey. So this is 1, 2, and 3, and you'll be able to see that via the landing image on this reading anyway. So looking forward to have you join me for the reading. We'll start with card number 1, Comfrey. So hello, pile number 1, Comfrey card. These are the cards that came out for your reading. We have self-love. We have touching earth. Planting something new. Don't mind me while I arrange these cards. We have the elk from the animal spirit deck. We have Magic Guardian, unlock the magic within. Actually, I'll see if it's better there, isn't it? And then we have 2 beautiful, very, very interesting crystal cards for you in terms of crystals to possibly consider working with, crystals to attune to in terms of their energy, and I will be sharing their names and what they are in a bit more detail as we get into the reading. So I'm starting off with oracle cards, and then I will be clarifying some of these messages with tarot as we go. So the idea and the calling for me, at least, was to speak about spiritual self-care and what needs to be tended to. Now, for this Comfrey card, this really speaks to completion. Comfrey is an ancient indigenous plant that is ruled by the planet Saturn. Saturn is known as the authoritarian planet, the planet that teaches us many lessons, and unfortunately, many of these lessons tend to come through challenges. But in terms of the elementals, in terms of the way spirit works, in terms of the way our guides work, it's not to say that all our teachings, all the lessons that we have to learn in life, are guided to us through difficulty, through challenge. No, but in terms of our growth, in terms of the fact that we are souls that have reincarnated possibly numerous times. Some of us are a bit more ancient than others. Some of us are newer souls, right? This is not a competition. It's just, the way life goes, right? Saturn, being the authoritarian planet, sometimes astrologers refer to it as a parent planet. A parent planet meaning, parents are our guides, right? They're our caretakers, they're our formative educators. They are the folks that are responsible for seeding us from, birth, right? And Saturn tends to have that sort of parental nature about it, guiding us. We have a Saturn return, which normally constitutes of about 7 years of education. And we are taken through a series of life lessons, of challenges to support our expansion, our soul's growth, our evolution. And sometimes this can actually be quite difficult, depending on the type of life and lifestyle we've had, depending on what our purpose and destiny is in this life. Now, this Comfrey card is really speaking to me about the closing and completion of this cycle, of possibly a Saturn return, or of a significant chapter in your life. I mean, it does say there completion, right? So you are closing out something really major. This wreath here also speaks to cycles, right? It's circular in nature, even though we can't see the bottom there. And also refers to what comfrey was used for, the binding of wounds. Comfrey was used historically to bind and support healing broken bones, right? And to stop bleeding, apparently. So I'm seeing this as a completion of a cycle of healing. Not that our healing ever stops, but perhaps you were healing some deep-rooted traumas, some deep-rooted wounds, possibly childhood wounding. We'll see as we get a little bit more into this. What I'm receiving here is that you have been learning some lessons about trusting yourself, about loving yourself, about putting yourself first. You are a wise soul. This elk energy here speaks to the divine masculine, right? And this is an elder sort of energy. And I'm not speaking about elder in terms of age. I'm speaking about elder in terms of wisdom, right? The antlers begin growing, when a deer or a doe, I should say, is at a certain age. And then, when they reach maturity, they're fully grown, but they grow over time, and they symbolize, wisdom to a certain extent. You have gone through a cycle of bringing into balance your masculine energy. Now, it doesn't matter what your gender is. We all harbor feminine and masculine traits. Our masculine energy is the side of us that presides over our logic, the action that we take in life, our decision-making processes, our ego. It is what is, it's the doing energy, right? The action, the movement, the impetus, the willpower to put our ideas into action, to tend to things, to watch them grow, to do the work that is required for harnessing our dreams, right? For achieving success. But we need both energies. The feminine is the idea generator, right? It's the nurturer. The elk is the doer. So you perhaps began this cycle with maybe an imbalance in terms of your masculine energy. Perhaps and what this imbalance was, I can't actually tell yet, but have come into a position now where you're taking all of those lessons and you're using them to stabilize your life, right? You are planting new seeds here, new ideas, and this is being done with the support of your guides. You are growing something. You have shifted past an old cycle, perhaps even a shift of careers recently, taking a new direction. I'm really seeing somebody that has pivoted, that this completion of a cycle was pretty massive, and it wasn't just about healing old wounds. It was closing a chapter on an old way of being, an old identity. You've really sort of shifted paradigms in terms of your belief systems, the way you see yourself and look at the world, the reality that you now live within. What you embody, the truths that you embody, are all due to the wisdom not only that you've gained during this cycle, throughout your whole life. You've been deepening also into your spirituality. And I'm seeing here with this magic guardian, unlocking the magic within, that you are really at that stage now of self-mastery, which is also what the elk medicine speaks to. The elk, the divine masculine principle of the elk here, is about balance and resilience due to the life lessons, due to the wisdom, right? The elk thinks before it speaks. The elk energy is diplomatic, is democratic. It's that sort of elder energy that you go to for advice, because you know that they'll be able to give you objective, non-emotional, very, very grounded, wise words and reflections. And this is what you're beginning to embody. Maturity, sensitivity, but not to a fault. Supportive, kind. The elk is a father figure, so you've learned how to parent yourself. Perhaps you didn't grow up with a significant masculine energy in your life, and this is what led to a bit of a distortion when you were slightly younger, or before this sort of cycle began, this initiation, this Saturn return. And when I speak to distortions, it doesn't have to be anything. I'm not speaking about anything toxic, although it can be. Distortions can present themselves in that way. It could be, not actually leaning into your feminine. Feminine is about the nurturing that we give ourselves, the self-care, the self-love, the gentility that we extend onto others and to ourselves. Perhaps you were really critical of yourself. You pushed yourself really hard. You were focused on achieving and had a specific idea of what success looked like and meant. You might have prioritized some needs of yours and not others, to a fault, which leads to imbalances, right? So distortion is basically speaking about when we're out of balance. And those imbalances can lead to illness, right? If we're overdoing something, if our way of being and living becomes sort of borderline toxic, and I'm speaking, this could be toxic for our health, or toxic in terms of, the way we treat others, the way we look at ourselves, and treat ourselves, right? We're a reflection of those that we surround ourselves by. And perhaps you were surrounded by folks that reflected that same distortion, right? And I'm seeing this cycle as a healing process of just, all of this distortion, this masculine distortion, not being in touch with your feminine side, right? Allowing that masculine energy to prevail and preside over everything, which perhaps meant that you, depending on, your sexual preference, possibly didn't align or choose folks that would be supportive of a balanced and healthy relationship. But this speaks to really having gone through some tough lessons, right? You have come to a stage where you are aware of patterns, right? Returning patterns and cycles, even familial ones. Really understanding the roots of some of these wounds. But you're being called now to really utilize this wisdom, to lean into your own self-knowing, right? And again, this is speaking to the balance of masculine and feminine, the dreaming versus the analytical and the logical, the nurturing and caring versus the action taking. Because the more balanced we are, the more we will attract balance into our lives. The more aligned we are with our natural and most authentic expression, the more we are supported by our guides and attuned. It's not to say, when I say more we're supported, we are supported by our guides if we seek their assistance, right? If we attune with them. So in terms of what you're being asked to tend to, it's just more self-trust. More self-love, knowing that you have gotten to a place now where you have enough wisdom to guide yourself in any moment. You are also being encouraged to plant something new, to seed some new ideas. I am getting the impression here with this winged, guide, that you have a deceased loved one that knows there are dreams, goals, ideas that you haven't yet actioned because you suppressed some of your needs and wants, right? You suppressed some of these aspects of self, perhaps the more creative aspects, right? The more feminine expressions of the self. The feminine rules the creative side of the brain, the right side. And it's not to say, just because you're a creative means you're feminine. No, that's not the way the energies work, right? So there are some artistic creations that are wanting to be birthed. Something to do with your hands, utilizing your hands. So perhaps you are a musician. Perhaps you are a healer even, and you are wanting to tap in further into the healing arts. Whatever it is, there's a strong message here that this is now a season for you to utilize the wisdom. Whatever your field is, it's hard to sort of tell here. You have enough knowledge now to apply this into creating something beautiful, and you have cleared the debris of wounds. There is fertile soil that is awaiting those seeds, and this is a direct message from your guides that they are ready and waiting to support you in nurturing this new project, these new ideas or new idea, whatever it is. It could be a new vocation, it could be a passion project. but it's something for sure that you've been wanting to pour into for some time, and perhaps you've done it in bits here and there over time, but you haven't really allowed yourself that permission to prioritize whatever this is, to really actually make space for it, because we tend to talk ourselves out of things that, you know, this is definitely to do with this distortion here, I feel, of the masculine, where we, you know, we have an idea success equals money, equals a certain lifestyle, equals stability, notoriety, whatever that is, right? And if whatever our passion and our true love is something that doesn't guarantee that safety or align with that, we live in a culture that encourages the dismissal of that, right? I say we live in a culture for safety, depending on what your background is, depending on what sort of resources you grew up with, what support system you had. So many of us, and understandably, right, we live in a very capitalistic world that promotes the safety and stability over creation. I'm just going to clarify some of these. Yeah, the three cards came out straight away. The Two of Cups for elk energy, I wanted to clarify. The Ten of Wands and the Death card here. So I'm just going to put this over here. I love this. It couldn't be more succinct. I mean, the fact that they came out so quickly kind of speaks to it, really. You know, Two of Cups can speak to partnerships. It can speak to friendships. It can speak to, you know, the unification of your, you know, meeting your soulmate, right? But I'm actually seeing this as the union and balance of yin and yang, that coming together of both aspects of self, your feminine, your masculine. You're moving into a time where you understand that in order to be happy, in order to actually truly be yourself, to succeed without having these, you know, perhaps you've had cycles of depression or anxiety, or I don't know, you know, we will, life is about ebbs and flows, right? But the more we attune to our own natural rhythms, the more we attune to finding balance within ourselves, the less we are likely to have these epic highs and low lows. And I'm really seeing that you are beginning to understand the need to find balance within yourself and how this is reflected in your masculine and feminine traits. Perhaps you don't use that language. Perhaps you haven't been using that terminology, but this is what your guides are allowing you to know. You're moving into you're closing this out. This is the Ten of Wands here is clarifying the Comfrey card. This is a completion of a very difficult cycle. This has been immensely challenging, but you have done the work of gathering up all this knowledge. All of these wands represent the challenges, the lessons, the work, right, that you've put in. And you might not even be seeing that in yourself, but you have, you know, the two animals here with horns, again representing wisdom. You have really been through it, right? You took on a lot. You've mastered quite a few skills. Perhaps you've been studying, you've been retraining recently, or you have had to expand it in other ways that have really pushed you. At the same time, perhaps almost crippled you in the process. But Saturn really, you know, we grow through expansion, don't we? And sometimes our spirit guides literally stretch us to the point to our breaking point, because it's when we are at where we feel is our limits that we really come to understand our true strength and what we are capable of. And the thing is, once you get to the 10 of Wands, once you've carried those, up that mountain and come back down, you're unbreakable, right? Nothing is, you are undefeatable. The Death card speaks to the closing out of this significant chapter, the ending, the finality. This is success, right? This is success. You are now at a time where you're celebrating yourself, where you're pouring more into yourself. And, there's that saying, how can we love others if we don't love ourselves? Who we attract will always be a reflection of us. So if you're looking back, if you have been burdened by relationships, people, it's because they were reflecting the wounds that you were healing at the time. Hence, you are at that stage where you are wise enough to now witness returning patterns, right? You're like, nah, I'm not doing that again. You're changing routes, changing lenses on your reality, being the master of your own domain and dominion. Let's see what these crystal energies are offering. Right. Tektite, which is really, really interesting stone here. Looks a little bit of like pyrite to me. And yes, very similar to pyrite in the fact that, there's always a bit of debate in terms of where some of these crystals originate from. And though, of course, some folks will speak to the terrestrial, meaning that it's of the earth. Other astrologers, ancient astrologers, sorry, I'm just reading the card here, are deeming this to be from other worlds, right? Tektite is described as, I'm so sorry, I'm getting confused here, trying to read too many bits at the same time. So Tektite describes any natural glass formed as the result of meteor impacts with our blue planet. Modern science deems the stones terrestrial in composition, i.e. of this earth, but believers in ancient astronauts have other theories. It looks very similar to pyrite, and pyrite itself, I've had messages from, the other realms and visions of pyrite arriving here. So, when you connect with these minerals, right? When you connect with these allies of the cosmos, of Mother Nature, when I speak to Mother Nature, I'm not just, Mother Nature presides over the cosmos, right? Too. All of existence is birthed through the cosmic womb. Emphasis on the word womb, right? So the divine and cosmic mother, Mother Nature, i.e., provides for us. And this beautiful stone, when I say connecting with the stones, they will guide you. They will tell you where they're from if you ask them. You can work with them as you do with plant medicine. There's information in the description box that will guide you, if you're new here, to my website where you can learn a little bit more about what I do. I didn't give my spiel at the beginning of this because I know it's going to be a longer message and I wanted to save time. I'm a holistic healer and spiritual life coach. I work with a mix of earth technologies for healing. So Tektite supports you in raising your vibration. You are being encouraged to use it when gravity feels extra heavy, when you are going through those more weightier days. Perhaps you're just at the end of this cycle, releasing still wounds, shifting gears. It says when you want to raise your vibration and expand your intergalactic horizons, when you're feeling heavy and you're wanting to sort of ground into the earth. Really interesting. I haven't actually come across Tektite before. You can just Google that to get a little bit more information for yourself. Tourmaline quartz, I do know well. I used to have a tourmaline quartz ring, which I say I used to. I do. I'm just not wearing it now. Amazing healing. They are all healing, provide healing in a myriad of different ways. But tourmaline is known as a protection stone, black tourmaline specifically. This speaks to restoring your light. So I think it's a mix of clear and black tourmaline. When to use it is, when you're in need of a psycho-spiritual scrub, meaning perhaps, maybe times when you have been influenced by negative energies, people, places, things, situations, when it's time to shed vices, victims, yes, vampires in your life. You are at a stage now where, perhaps we have all had those folks that take advantage of us, those folks that take more than give, right? And how do we learn how to ascertain who is for us and who isn't? Unfortunately, through having to make mistakes, right? Choosing the wrong people, the wrong scenarios, the wrong jobs, the wrong thing to align with. But the idea is that we take the medicine, we take the lesson, the wisdom from whatever that situation was, integrate it so that we are less likely to make that go through that repeat lesson, right? And if we have to, because it will happen, it's just a reminder from spirit that, hey, we've got to, watch out for this again. That same vampiric energy can also show up in this form and this form and that form. And eventually we will hone the skill, the wisdom, the intuitive knowing that alerts us immediately. And this is why we have to cultivate that, intuitive energy, right? So this is great for clearing your field and supporting you in protecting yourself from these folks, heightening your intuition, because the thing about these stones, especially the protection stones, is you will find they will activate you in ways that, it could be a discomfort that you suddenly feel before you're supposed to meet somebody, or a bad dream, or I don't know, anger or whatever. You have to attune with them and understand how each one works. But those are 2 recommendations there. I hope that you have enjoyed this and are able to take something away. If you would like to deepen into any aspect of this, you are free to contact me. All the details will be in the description below. And I hope that you will be joining me for another session very soon. Bye for now. So, hello, pile number 2. You chose Dragon's Blood, Anima Mundi, and you also got Healing the Heart, Power of Self-Love, Miracles, Ancient Wisdom, Reunion of Souls, Forgiveness. For a few of these sets of decks, 2 cards came out. Medicine Mother and Lion. You also got a crystal healing card, which I will share with you at the end of the reading there. Right, so number 2, Dragon's Blood. This card and plant, Dragon's Blood, it's ancient, used by indigenous tribes of the rainforest in South America. The sap of the tree is red and has the consistency of blood. It's been used by many tribal people as a protection and purification shamanic medicine. I know that it's also used in spell work and ritual work, right? For protection and for purification. Blood as a symbol, the symbology of blood is associated with Scorpio and Pluto. It's scorpionic and plutonic energy. And those are the archetypes that this card prevails. So Scorpio is all about death, rebirth. It presides over sexual energy. It's fire. Amina Mundi represents the soul of the world, right? The all-seeing eye there. You are stepping into mastery. This energy is speaking to somebody that is really becoming a master of themselves. You are incredibly self-knowing. You have been cultivating a lot of spiritual acumen of late. And in terms of, the preface of this message, which speaks to spiritual self-care, what your guides are wanting you to tend to, this is all positives here, right? This is all speaking to leaning into your own truth and knowing. Every single one of these cards really speaks to spiritual strength, speaks to mastering the self, honoring the self, knowing the self. And in order to know thyself, you would have had to have been on a journey down into the underworld. You have gone through a death and a rebirth process. You have healed and reconciled wounds and traumas. And you have gained many truths and wisdom. With this all-seeing eye here, you are now trusting in spirit. You are spiritually attuned. You trust in your guides. Perhaps you work with the ancestral mothers. Perhaps you are following a faith or tradition that is connecting you to mother deities, right? So divine feminine energies, Ma'at, for example, Isis, or it could be Oshun or Mama Moja. It could be Mary if you're a Christian, or Mary Magdalene. I'm not very familiar with a lot of the more religious deities, but that's just to name a few. This group of cards is really speaking to me about deepening still into this wisdom that you've already garnered, right? You have the ability now to see beyond the veil, as in to see beyond what is presented to you, to see beyond the illusion of the matrix. How deep we go down that rabbit hole of knowing is really up to us. But the further we go, the more we cultivate our spiritual muscles, the more that spirit actually allows us to see and trusts us with, right? And your guides here are really wanting you to trust them in the medicine that you have acquired. And if you aren't working with any deities, perhaps to connect with them. So what are your ancestral traditions? This card here is really speaking to me about the call to connect with your ancestral mothers. Now, this isn't necessarily your immediate ancestors of your maternal or paternal line. This is possibly speaking to the deities, the archetypes, the energies. This is speaking to the traditions and the philosophies that your ancient ancestral mothers on both maternal and paternal side will have followed. What wisdom traditions, what belief systems, what were their lenses? What were their philosophies? What did they hold sacred? What medicines did they attune to? What symbology do they speak with? What plants, allies, medicines did they work with? And how might these be of interest to you? It doesn't matter what your vocation is. Things spark. All it is a catalyst or a domino effect that then triggers something, triggers a deeper meaning. And when I speak to medicines, I'm not just speaking to medicines for healing that we digest. Medicine is art, music, instruments, literal foods, jewelry, crystals, ways of knowing and being that will support you into deepening into knowing yourself. This journey of knowing ourselves is really sort of, and aspects of it require shadow work, and ancestrally using an indigenous lens, shadow work requires connecting with the history beyond this lifespan that we're living in now. So it requires delving into the parts of ourselves that we don't see in the spiritual, our past lives, our ancestors, ancient traditions that have been passed down, gifts that have been passed down in our lineage, gifts that we haven't unearthed yet, that living dormantly in our epigenome. These two are speaking to connecting with that wisdom, harnessing it. You have gifts. Spirit is alerting you to this. You are entering a time of mastery here. The Lion card really speaks to mastering the self. The Lion is the epitome of strength. It's the fire element, which relates to the dragon's blood here. They're precise planners. They strategize because they don't waste their energy. Lions go in full force when they're hunting prey, when they're attacking and attacking a perceived threat. Known as the king of the jungle, they are fierce. They inspire as well as intimidate. The reason they intimidate is their ferocity, their speed, their strength, but also their agility, right? They are also extremely peaceful creatures, right? They don't go out picking fights. They don't waste their energy, but they will protect their kin, their pride. You're cultivating and have cultivated strength, a lot of spiritual strength here. And I'm really seeing that you're entering a time that is potent in terms of what you can access. This Miracles card is really speaking to me about attuning with this ancient wisdom, about unlocking some gifts that you might have an inkling about, but haven't yet really possibly understood how potent they are, or the strength that you actually really wield. This might require letting aspects of your wounds. I'm seeing this as the remnants of your, the last stages of this cycle of healing that you've been in, perhaps. Remembering that forgiveness is more so for ourselves than for those that harmed us. right? When we harbor hostility, resentments, hate, anger, all very valid, right? We you know, this isn't to berate those emotions. This isn't about suppressing, but this is about letting go. Letting go doesn't mean allowing people back in, giving them access to you. No, we have the right to affirm our boundaries here, and I think you are wise enough. You have gained this knowledge and knowing, but in order, you know, what I said about not wasting energy, not creating blockages within the self, balancing your feminine, masculine, having these waters calm, your emotional waters. Anything that blocks us will inevitably lead to some sort of turbulence because of the imbalance, right? So this card is speaking about creating balance within your emotions as a means to liberate yourself to access these gifts. I am also getting something here about a teacher, perhaps a soulmate entering your life, someone from a past life, a reunion of souls. I'm not sensing that this is someone that you've met before. This is someone that perhaps you knew in a past life. Someone that might lead you to expanding in terms of your gifts, expanding in terms of your healing, expanding in terms of this balance. Or perhaps this is someone you have to forgive or seek forgiveness from. You will know what resonates. But you are being guided to lean into your truth, to understand that in order to maintain this wisdom and deepen into it, really sort of strengthen those spiritual muscles, this comes with a deeper knowing of yourself and a love of the self and a healing of the heart. So letting go of past hurts, feeling them, reconciling them, making peace, which takes time, right? That, you know, but perhaps this is a focus, you know, in terms of what the premise of this message is, which is what spiritual self-care, what are you being guided to tend to? Maintenance, deepening into the wisdom of your ancestry, your history, because they're gifts that need to be activated and deepened into. And this is really prevalent here. You've got spirits presiding over you. There is a passed over loved one, I think, that has bestowed some gift. You know, we are chosen within our family line, our ancestors' past gifts, creativity, insight, psychic ability, spiritual strength. There's someone you're being guided to meet. Someone that you have a history with, but in a past life. And I think this is all ancestrally connected. This person is going to support your expansion. This person is going to support you reconciling some aspects of these wounds that you perhaps are still struggling to heal or, you know, integrate. But I'm getting more so that this person is really going to support you in terms of coming into balance with yourself and in terms of healing your heart, in terms of accepting who it is that you are and understanding what it is that you're here to do. There's some magic here for sure, and it's beautiful. So in terms of your medicine, chrysoprase or chrysoprase, I'm not familiar with this stone. Hypnotic green chrysoprase is a rare stone with a heavy helping of nickel, hence its mesmerizing verdant hue. Who needs it? Explorers searching for the fountain of youth. When to use it? When it's time to forgive that person who hurt you the most, your parents, and most of all, yourself. You are not a doormat, you are an evolved being. And when you feel like giving up on love, chrysoprase gives you the green light to keep going. Yes, I am sensing here that there are some deeper wounds. The more difficult ones are actually the ones that are inflicted by those that we love the most. You know, those that should have shown us love unconditionally, those that we trusted, right, with ourselves, those who we gave ourselves to freely, unconditionally, those who, you know, betrayed our trust. And it's difficult, but like I say, you know, forgiveness is about releasing that stagnant energy, not holding on to the pain so that it keeps blocking you, hindering you, exacerbating other aspects to leave you unbalanced. It's making peace, right? Now, depending on the severity of the wound, the trauma that this person caused, whether it's a member of your family, whether it's a parent, whether, you know, it's even yourself, it's about understanding that life is about lessons and that it's about distilling the wisdom. When we distill the wisdom, we actually alchemize the pain, right? And we heal the wound. We've got to feel into it, but we can also feel through it and then move on. Take the wisdom, take the lessons, learn our lessons. What won't we do again? What won't we allow again? What have our eyes opened to? What are we seeing more clearly about ourselves, about others? What boundaries do we need to assert and affirm? But how might we also be being too rigid and keeping people away? You know, remember I said the lions can be feared and be inspiring, right? But they can also be quite aloof because of their regality, because of their position at the top of the food chain. They can also tend to sit within their egos a little bit too much, which unfortunately can also be quite damaging and lead to erosions in friendships, in trust of other people, and shut people out. But forgiveness of yourself, perhaps forgiveness of others, is what is going to unlock an aspect of what is waiting for you. And this is powerful stuff. This is really potent. Now I'm going to round up this message. I'm going to clarify really quickly, just because we've got one more to go and I am, excuse me, a little bit short of time today, so sorry for the rush, but oh wow. The Lovers, the Four of Cups, get one more, the King of Cups. Yes, emotional mastery, emotional expansion, emotional maturation. is the next phase, or what you are currently or possibly being invited to move into. How do we develop ourselves in terms of our emotional prowess, in terms of our emotional intelligence? For me, emotional intelligence is the pinnacle of intelligence. You can have all the certificates, you can have studied books and gained academic knowledge, but if you have no life experience, if you're not emotionally attuned, there's only so far you'll get in the world, and it will be in a one-dimensional sense. And I'm speaking to someone that's very spiritually attuned or being spiritually guided here. You are not one-dimensional by any means. These cards would not be showing up. In fact, you are a gifted being. So let's speak about these clarification cards. Perhaps this is a soulmate. The Lovers is here. Perhaps this is a soulmate that you almost missed. This card speaks to possible missed opportunities. It speaks to rejection. It speaks to being offered something but being too sort of passive or despondent, wounded possibly, absent-minded, a number of things. You're jaded and you're not noticing what Spirit is literally handing you and saying, listen, you're focusing on the past and possibly maybe what went wrong. Normally, I'm really getting the Five of Cups, even though this is a Four of Cups, which is more positive, but both are very close, right? The Five of Cups actually shows some cups spilled over. And even though this is the Four, that's really what I'm getting here, that you're focused on the past and you're not seeing something that is literally being presented to you. And I think this has to do with someone that perhaps you dismissed, didn't see, misjudged, or someone might have misjudged you. Someone might have misjudged you. You take it as it resonates. This is guided. You know, I wouldn't normally see, you know, because the Lovers obviously speaks to sacred partnerships. It speaks to divinely guided partnerships, soulmates, twin flames, if you believe in twin flames. They're very rare. But this is guided. There's a lot of ancestral energy here. You have some grandmothers, some sacred grandmothers, some motherly, feminine energy looking after you, guiding you, as well as Spirit. And you are stepping into emotional maturation. You are evolving. You're mastering the self. It's a process of growing up, for want of a better word. Doesn't matter what age we are, right? Life is a constant process of evolution, and our expansion requires that we take accountability for ourselves, how we've contributed to our wounding, in terms of, the skills we need to cultivate to strengthen ourselves, to deepen into resilience emotionally, to not be so prideful and in our ego to the point where we miss out on opportunities, to understand that actually allowing ourselves to be vulnerable on occasion is a strength rather than a weakness. It's utilizing a new lens to look at things. This is what emotional maturation requires. Being humble is actually a strength, right? Not having to be right all the time, which actually leads us to arrogance. Maturity is about having the ability to let things go because we're strong enough to not let them affect us anymore. We're strong enough to move on, to say, you know what? I've elevated beyond this. I'm good. I forgive you. It's actually okay. You don't have to take somebody back, or allow them access to you in the ways that you did, or affirming your boundaries. I forgive you, but, outlining, this is not on. This is how I want to be treated. This is how you hurt me. I will not stand for this again. It requires forgiving ourselves, not berating ourselves, which also leads to this apathy, this sort of victim mentality, woe is me. Taking charge and responsibility and ownership for the configuration of your own reality as we are in charge of creating here in this matrix. The King of Cups speaks to attuning, allowing themselves, someone that has allowed, the way we develop our emotional acumen is to allow ourselves to feel things. And we feel until we break through to the other side, right? We get to know that emotion inside out. How does it work for you? And how does it work against you? Because all emotions, we can look at it on a hierarchical scale, because they're not all equal. Some are definitely high vibrational than others, right? If we think about energy, we think about vibration and frequency. We know there are lower frequencies and higher frequencies. Love is the pinnacle. Happiness, joy. It doesn't mean we ignore the lower frequencies of sadness, of grief, of pain, of anger, of rage, of jealousy, but we maintain balance, and we work towards allowing ourselves to sit with the ones that are further up the scale than the ones at the bottom. Because the ones at the bottom can lead to sabotage, can keep us blinded. They're the ones that will create these blockages, create stagnancy, repeat pattern cycles. They're the ones that we are conditioned by, right? They're rooted to our conditioned tendencies, our behaviors, those sort of impulses that we are not even aware that we fall into, right? Because they become habit. And they become habit because actually it's to do with society, the way that we're reared. We are modeled by our immediate surroundings, the people in our lives, our parents, our community, the institutions that govern us. It's breaking away from that, seeing beyond. But I've really sort of focused a bit, and obviously been called to here with this card, because I'm actually seeing it as what is required for this union to happen, right? Perhaps this is seeking forgiveness, or forgiving yourself, or forgiving others, to allow for this union to come into being. How are you taking accountability? What is your part to play in this? You will know whether it's you or maybe it's both parties. Whatever it is, I'm loving the way that I've placed them too. The Lovers on the Miracles, the King of Cups here on the reunion of souls and forgiveness that's required. And the presence of this, your ancestral mothers are coming through hard. Like, I'm just feeling their energy. But it's really loving. It's really loving. It's soft and tender, but it's also firm. They're here to really hone this in, that don't risk missing out on something magical and beautiful for lack of, but you're there. I see that you are there. And this grow from your heart out. Yeah. I hope you have taken something from this message, and I hope that You are going to deepen into the wisdom of your guides, your ancestral mothers, your lineage traditions that might support you in your process in honing and deepening into that gift. And that you do whatever it's required to allow yourself this magic. I'm seeing definite soulmate energy here. Perhaps past life, someone that you've been connected with, that you've been with before, that you're being guided to meet again in this cycle. This is exciting. So beautiful. Yeah, I know you can do it. I've got hope. I can feel it. I've just been overcome just this like wash of really loving warmth and a feeling of hope and joy and beauty. So I am going to wish you well on your journey. Do feel free to leave a comment below to let me know how your process is, and you know, if you've taken anything from this message. Looking forward to connecting with you again soon.